Welcome, one and all, back to the Viper's Nest. And look! I'm talking about Resident Evil! That's like one of the things I started my channel for in the first place before it got taken over by videos of my cat! Wow! As you can see, talking about Resident Evil 5, which is something that's been in the news quite a bit these last couple of weeks, am I right? So, why are we talking about Resident Evil? I'm going to try to answer the question, is Resident Evil 5 racist? Short answer? No. No, it's not. Long answer, well, let's get into that, shall we? So, to begin, I'm going to paraphrase Brad Pitt and Shia LaBeouf from one of my favorite movies of all time, Fury. Bible, what country are we in? Africa. What do they have in Africa? Africans. So apparently this whole argument is whether or not Resident Evil 5 is racist because you shoot a bunch of black people in Resident Evil 5. So already pretty quick we're going to run into a problem here. So Resident Evil 5 takes place in a part of West Africa known as Kijuju. And big ol' shocker, I know, there's a lot of Africans in Africa, am I right? And apparently, because Chris is a white man, shooting black people is racist. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to make this argument, you also have to apply it, I feel, to every other Resident Evil game. So let's take Resi 4, for example. Where are all the Spanish people who are angry about all the Spanish people that get shot up in that game? How about Resident Evil 6? Where are all the Chinese and European people who are angry about all the Chinese and European people who get shot up in that game? You know, for that matter, where are all the white people who get mad about all the white people that get shot up in Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3? The answer to that is, there really aren't any. Okay, now, before I go any further, here's something I try to acknowledge in all of these kind of videos that I try to apply logic to. Yes, there will be an exception to all of this somewhere. So I am sure that there is at least one black person out there who feels Resident Evil 5 is racist, and they probably think that for perfectly valid reasons. I hear this, I acknowledge it. Let's move on, shall we? It's an exception. So, like I said, a lot of Africans tend to live in Africa. And is this racist, Chris shooting up all these, black people? No, I don't think so. Because, never once in all of Resident Evil 5, I don't think, it's been a few years since I played it, is the issue of race ever brought up. I think there's two bits that kind of get close. The first one is, like, in the very beginning, when Chris shows up to Kijuju, Sheva meets him, and Chris makes a response that, wow, they really don't roll out the red carpets for Americans here, do they? Which, fair, I get. Chris is obviously an American. Do they think he's American because he's white? No, I don't think so. I think he's an American because, well, he looks, talks, and dresses like an American. And the locals of Kijuju are not happy to see Americans. Fair, I get it. I don't think they're judging Chris based on his skin color, necessarily. I mean, they might be a little bit, that's entirely possible. But that conversation really doesn't go any further than that. And the other time this strays close to racism, I feel, is when Wesker is giving his villainous monologue about how he's going to make a superior race of humans using the Ouroboros virus, which he is going to release into the atmosphere, ensuring complete global saturation. Now, yes, I think this is mildly racist, but I think it's blanket racism against the entirety of the human race and not just black people. Now, Wesker is what you would call an equal opportunity killer, I think. He doesn't care whether you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever other race. He doesn't care if you're male, female, non-binary, transgender. He does not give a fuck. He's what you would call an omnicidal maniac. He is going to kill absolutely everybody. So, yes, you could construe that as racism against the entirety of the human race, but that's still not specifically racist against black people. So do I think Resident Evil 5 is racist in those contexts against black people? No, I really don't. Now, could it have been? Yes, if Chris had said something along the lines of, boy, howdy, I'm so happy I get to shoot up all these black people, and then he starts dropping the N-word with the hard R. Yes, that would be racism, because Chris would then demonstrate hatred and discrimination towards somebody based solely on their skin color. That would be racist. Chris does not do that. So in that, no, I don't think it's racist. The other point people are trying to make about this nonsense is the part where you get to like the swamps and the caves and you see a bunch of Africans dressed up in like tribal garb, carrying like shields and spears and wearing outfits made of like bone and stuff. So here's the thing, people are being all like, wow, look at how primitive they're construing all of these Africans to be. Now, I can't quite remember. I do think, though, there is something, I think it's a text file you can find in the game, talking about how the Las Plagas Type 2 parasite is messing around mentally with all the infected, right? Okay, so I do believe that there is an in-game universe explanation for that. There's also a real-world explanation for that, and that's people living, like, all feudally and tribal style. That's not unheard of. Like, the immediate example that springs to my mind would be a place called North Sentinel Island. And the people on that island have been living in the same state for, like, probably a couple of thousand years now. They don't want outsiders coming onto their island. Outsiders don't want to go to their island, so generally the world has declared North Sentinel Island kind of a no-go zone, so people just don't go there. They're content to leave the North Sentinel people well alone, which, fine. You know, so obviously they're not going to have modern conveniences and culture and whatnot over there, so that makes sense, right? Other examples, you could say, like, well, look at how in Resident Evil 4 they're portraying these Spaniards as basically, like, I don't know, like Amish people or medieval peasants or something like that. And that's also not a completely unheard of thing. Like, there are tons of people all over the world who live, like, way in the back of Beyond, where the areas have not been developed, so they're just kind of living and making do with whatever they can, you know, scavenge, find, or build for themselves. Like, you know, Amish people generally, if I'm remembering correctly, they don't go in a lot for, like, outside conveniences. They make and build and farm and fish all their stuff all on their own. I mean, there's, even in America, like, I say that like Amish people aren't in America, there are, but specifically, my home state of Alaska, there are plenty of people in the Alaska interior who are a million miles from nowhere without an easy way to get to where they are, so they also essentially just have to live completely off the land, you know, subsisting on whatever they can find or build themselves. And some people even do this willingly, like people who live, you know, among the modern day civilization, quote unquote, like, just go up into the interior, find a place, build themselves a log cabin, and then just kind of live out there, because that's what they want to do. And given the state of 2024, you know, I really can't blame them all that much, honestly. So, these things, like I said, not completely unheard of, and not specifically related to Africans, like other people on the internet are trying to say, like, oh, look at these African savages that they're portraying in these games. Like, that's a real thing, man. People actually do that. Willingly or unwillingly, they do that kind of thing. It's not unheard of. So, back to the original argument. Do I think Resident Evil 5 is racist? No. No, I don't. It's just a game that happens to take place in Africa, so you're bound to find a high concentration of African people. And also, a lot of the people who are saying this game is racist aren't even in the, like, quote-unquote offended group here. Like, I know plenty of black people who have seen Resident Evil 5. They don't think it's racist. I mean, hell, TJ Storm, a guy who is literally in Resident Evil 5, he voices and mocaps Josh Stone, straight up says, like, no, I don't think this is racist. It's a video game. Just have fun. Enjoy the video game. Like, there you go. Straight from the horse's mouth on that one. TJ Storm himself, a man in the game, says the game is not racist. And so many, black people that I'm acquainted with also say, no, the game isn't racist. Like, I know one guy in particular who actually went to Africa quite a few years ago. I can't remember if it was like a religious mission or like, I don't know, Greenpeace or, aid mission. Whatever. He went over to Africa. He came back. I got to play Resident Evil 5 with him. And during the opening scene where the people of Kijuju capture that one poor guy who's voiced by Liam O'Brien and then chop his head off with a giant axe, my friend literally saw this scene and said, yeah, this ain't even really a viral outbreak. This is just like a normal Wednesday in Somalia. You didn't think it was racist? Pretty much all the black people I know don't think Resident Evil is racist. There's a bunch of people online who are also black people who are saying Resident Evil 5 is not racist. There you go. I think there was one guy on TikTok who literally said, hey, stop trying to be offended for us. We didn't ask you to do that. We are not offended. There you go, man. Resident Evil 5. Not racist. Anyway, thank you for listening to my Resident Evil 5 racism rant. I really appreciate it. Sound off in the comments. Leave a like. A subscribe would also be appreciated. I will see you on the next episode. And as always, have yourself a wonderful day.